sponsoring many events throughout the year. And I'd also like to thank NORCAM and Mark Neal of NORCAM for filming this tonight. So the people who aren't able to be here to hear Jay will have a chance to hear his talk. And tonight he's going to be talking to us about Paradise Road. The subtitle is Jack Kerouac's Lost Highway and My Search for America. And Jay retraced Jack Kerouac's trips through the United States and Mexico in the late 40s. He's also just about to publish a collection of short stories called Tovernier Street, if I pronounced it correctly. It's just not quite out. I mean, we're hoping to have it here tonight. It's just about to come out, and those have a local setting. So I think those will be of great interest, and we'll certainly have a copy in the library. And after Jay's talk, he'll sign books over at the table. So welcome, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Helena, and thanks to the Friends of the Library. This is my, I think, third or fourth visit to the library, and we've had some colorful ones. We've had some fans and we've had some detractors. It's just been quite interesting. And I'm like a type of person that I'm very black and white. Like it's either you like me or you don't. I like you or I don't. So I don't like any gray area, and that's a great thing about North Reading. If they come in and they think your book's they'll tell you. So we had some like entertaining evenings here, and I had to have the ladies form like a phalanx around me and like take me out to my car. I'm very intimidated by these various North Reading characters. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about this book, which I published in, came out in April, and it's called Paradise Road. Jack Kerouac, I'll tell you just a little bit about him. Seems like I've been talking about Jack Kerouac all week because I teach 2 courses at Boston University entitled Jack Kerouac and the Beat Generation. And I also teach a narrative nonfiction class there, so I've lectured on Kerouac today for about 3 hours already. So I'm pretty familiar with most of the points of his biography, and I'll just give you a quick rundown. And I can tell you why Kerouac was meaningful enough to me as a writer with all the subjects I could choose to write about. And I tend to alternate between nonfiction books and then works of fiction, nonfiction book and works of fiction. So Paradise Road is my 6th book, and it is my 3rd narrative nonfiction book. Previously published 3 works of fiction. Tovernier Street, my story collection, will be actually the 6th book. This would be the 5th book, that would be the 6th book. So I split evenly between novels and short stories and narrative nonfiction books. So essentially I'm a storyteller. Sometimes I'm telling you absolutely true stories, and sometimes I'm taking true stories and making them even truer by turning them into fiction. This project came to me for a number of reasons, but the similarities I have with Kerouac would be that we're both Merrimack Valley guys. He was born and raised in Lowell, Massachusetts, to French-Canadian parents, French-Canadian heritage, Roman Catholic, played sports in high school, and spent a lot of time by himself in his room, reading, studying on his own, creating games that he made up. He made up a very intricate baseball game where he played 156 fictional games between an 8-team league that he totally created. All the players' names, he created a little game board, and he would throw, not like a dice, but a little figure that decided whether the player hit a single, a double, a triple, a home run. That was the type of thing I would do when I was a kid. I would make up hockey, keep all hockey statistics on my wall, and so forth. So I have the similarity of, I was born from working class grandparents and parents in Lawrence, Massachusetts, not far from Lowell. My heritage is English and Irish on one side and Welsh and Irish on the other. I'm Roman Catholic. I was from, part of the city that wasn't the most affluent part of the city. Like Kerouac, I was the first child in my family to go to college, the first to go to graduate school, the first to graduate, and then my 4 siblings behind me all went after me. but between my parents, my aunts, uncles, and cousins, I was the first to go to college. Kerouac was the first in his family to go to college. He was accepted to Columbia University. He was supposed to go there to play football, although they did not have football scholarships. He was academically talented. They invited him, the football coach wanted him to go there, but he was going to get some financial assistance because of his academic talent. He went there, he went to prep school in New York for a year. Horace Mann, he did very well, played football, ran track, played baseball, got all good grades, wrote for the literary magazine and wrote sports for the paper. He was very well-rounded, handsome, very shy, but charismatic guy. If you've ever seen pictures of the young Kerouac, he was athletically built, quite stocky, jet black hair, blazing blue eyes, sort of a Breton-looking high cheekbones, perhaps like some Native American ancestry in addition to the French Canadian. Very striking man, and certainly athletic, popular at Lowell High School, shy but popular. His nicknames in high school were Memory Babe, because he had a photographic memory which served him very well in his writing career. He could remember things that his friends said, what they were dressed, what clothes they were wearing, what they ate years and years before, which would entertain his friends to no end. He could tell them, recreate conversations they had had, like on New Year's Eve, like 10 years earlier. His other nickname in high school was Zag, because of elusive running on the football field. He was the singular hero of the 1938 Lawrence-Lowell Thanksgiving Day football game. Back then, before televised sports and before professional sports were as popular as they are now, 10,000 people would go to the Lawrence-Lowell football game. It would be the athletic event of the fall and winter. Even track meets, when Kerouac ran track, he was blazing fast. His indoor speed in a tiny gym, not much bigger than this room, where you would run the 35-yard dash and it would end like 2 feet in front of the wall. His time in that race back then in the 1930s would be equal to a collegiate football player now. He would run like maybe a 4-second, 4/100ths of a second, 40-yard dash. That's very fast. In the football game, Lowell defeated Lawrence, I believe it was 8-6. He not only scored the touchdown, which was the only touchdown for Lowell in the game, but he scored the 2-point conversion. So he scored all 8 points. He also returned a couple of kicks and punts a long distance, which kept pinning Lawrence back in their end, so they couldn't score points to answer Kerouac's points, and the last points of the game came near the end of the game. So he was written up, and I read all the newspapers from that era. Back then, Lowell would have had maybe 4 or 5 newspapers, which is amazing when you think of how newspapers have died out. Boston had 7 or 8 newspapers back then. You know, Lowell, just a little city like Lowell, had several. Some would be colored paper, just sports, just like horse racing, you know, high school sports, maybe some college sports. He was very, very well known throughout the town because of that football game. And then throughout the Merrimack Valley, and then out to places like Notre Dame and University of California and Columbia, because the football coaches had heard of him and were looking for him. When I was an undergraduate in college, I was a Bethune High public school graduate, and I went to Acadia University in Nova Scotia, which is a small college on the Bay of Fundy. My pediatrician growing up, the family physician, was a graduate of Acadia University, and he went to McGill in Montreal for medical school. And my parents were not college educated. And when I was born, the family story has it that our pediatrician said, this boy's going to go to Acadia when he grows up. So when it came time to look at colleges, I looked at University of Vermont, I looked at University of Maine, Farmington. I was accepted at all these schools. I was a pretty good high school student. I applied to, I think, North Adams State College, maybe one other school, maybe Virginia, because we have cousins in Virginia. And then my dad had a friend that had a private plane, like a 4-seater plane, and we flew up to Nova Scotia. I had not really heard of the school, but my dad was talking about it. And we went to see the campus. It's beautiful. You could look at it online. It's a beautiful campus. the sports were just about right for me there. The level of athletic competition was just about right, so I played 2 sports there. And I ended up being a philosophy major with a double major in English literature. And then I had a minor in art history. So when I went to the school, my dad said, "This is what a college should look like." He was very impressed. I said, "Dad, why don't you go?" I think he wanted to. He wanted to stay there when I was there. Around about my junior year, I had not heard of Jack Kerouac in high school. Now they teach him in high school. Back then, I didn't know who he was. When I was in the Merrimack Valley, he died in 1969. There's a chance that I might have been in Lowell with my parents shopping at Christmas time or something and crossed the same street that Kerouac crossed. But I had not heard of him until I got up to college. One of my friends, who's a character in the book, he took the trip with me from Denver to Mexico City the year before last that I wrote about in this book. He was a big fan of Kerouac's. He was from Texas. He was an exceptional baseball player, and both of his older brothers played in the major leagues. Their names Bowden. He was the most talented of the 3 Bowden brothers. He went to Canada to go to university intentionally because his dad was one of those pushy sports dads. And his dad pushed his older brothers hard enough to where they ended up playing Major League Baseball. Each of them had short careers in Major League Baseball. Keith reacted against his high school coach and ended up saying, "I don't want to play baseball anymore. I want to get away from it. I want to do something else." So he went to school in Canada because they didn't have baseball there. The spring was so short. There wasn't enough time. There's no collegiate baseball in Canada. So that was why he went there, and that's why I met him, just by accident. And I was leaving campus for the summer. Back then I used to hitchhike from Wolfville, Nova Scotia. It would take about 20 hours. I would come down the airline route in Maine to Bangor and then down 95 to Methuen. And my parents didn't think anything of this. Like, I was 20 years old hitchhiking like 20 hours in the middle of nowhere, but it seemed like it was safe back then. So as I was getting ready to leave, it was the night before I was going to leave, my friend said, "Hey, have you read this book, On the Road by Jack Kerouac?" And I said, "No, who's that?" He said, "He's from Lowell." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, he's famous." I said, "Well, okay." So he gave me this book. It was all wrinkled and dog-eared and had things underlined in it. It was his copy of the book. And he started to walk away. His name's Keith, and his nickname in college was Bongo. That was his dad's nickname. I said, "Bongo, what is it about?" Do you see the front of the On the Road has like a setting sun? Some of those old paperbacks has a setting sun. That's it. It just says On the Road, Jack Kerouac. It's like a sun setting over a highway. Kind of like that, a little bit like that. And so I said, "What's it about?" And he just laughed. He was walking away. He ended up marrying one of our professors. He was walking away and he said, "You'll find out." And so he walked away and I was like, okay. So I had all my backpack packed, and my roommate was from Montreal and he was already gone. So I had the last night in our little apartment above the movie theater in town. I had this book to read, and everything was packed up for the summer, and I had one little beanbag chair, and I had a little radio, and I put on the light, and I read that book till about 3 o'clock in the morning. I finished it. I read it in one sitting. I was fascinated by it. Got me totally psyched to leave on my hitchhiking trip the next day. And that was the same time, it was around 1977, that Bruce Springsteen was just coming into the public eye. And he had a song that was playing on the radio called Thunder Road, which was a new song back then. And so I was totally amped up by reading this book. Most of my friends were gone, so I wasn't out that last night at the campus bar or any of that. I was just hanging around. It was in April of 1977. And I finished the book and I was like, And then Springsteen, they said, I'm listening to some station from Maine, like Presque Isle, Maine or something. They said, and there's a new singer out of New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen, and here's his new song, Thunder Road. And I heard that song and it made me just want to leave right then.